introducing the Capstone veterans.
First of all, do you want microphone? No microphone. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Rosenberry. First off, before I present my project, I'd like to thank Joe Wrigley specifically for going through my stress-inducing endeavors. She's more stressed than I am. Of course, Professor McAlpine, Eric Brown, and Carrie Salter. They've all been incredibly helpful. And then, of course, Dr. Phelan himself, man of the hour. Unfortunately, Dr. Schiffman and Dr. Tice could not be here today. Dr. Schiffman, there's a scheduling conflict, so it's just you guys who appreciate my work. So today is Veteran Student Success and Integration, Building a Better Campus Community. Now what I use here for my actual degree is Psychosocial Perspectives on Community Building. So the idea is to how to build a stronger community on campus to have stronger students. So I'm going to ask two individuals, just at random, anybody can raise their hand. These four pictures, what do you see here? Anybody raise their hand? Yes, Jill?
I see very, very unique looking individuals.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Diversity.
Diversity. In fact, these individuals are all veterans. Now the point is, we don't know who everybody is unless we converse, we talk, we learn about everyone. You have a gentleman in the bottom right, very eccentric, very individualistic. Young lady on the top right, single mother. Top left, very stern gentleman. And at the bottom left, we have a gentleman that's very happy. But you see the reflections. They represent completely different aspects of who they are as individuals. So the purpose of my capstone is specifically to understand why veterans are struggling in higher education institutes, and how to understand how these institutions can really give back and to improve in a more effective environment and to support the reintegration and success in achieving career goals, not only for veterans, but also for civilian students. Now by doing this, what I had to do was actually complete a literary review where I utilized multiple scientific journals from psychology and sociology. I actually also completed a national assessment. Now this national assessment consisted of me personally calling two schools, two higher education institutions, calling them personally, one from a rural setting and one from a metro setting. There we go. And I actually asked, the initial question was, what veteran services do you offer? And surprisingly, the response was, what do you mean by veteran services? Now that shocked me right out of the gate. You're answering your own question. I actually completed also an assessment of UMBC's veteran services. And last year and earlier this year, I attended the NASPA, which is the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, and the ASH, the Association for the Study of Higher Education conferences, where they were specifically, the keynote speakers were talking specifically about veterans in higher education. So it was very insightful, very, very insightful. Since 9/11, 2.6 million men and women have actually taken up the call and deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And since 2011, 1.9 million of those individuals are currently eligible for these VA Veterans Affairs education benefits. With 1.1 million veterans utilizing their benefits, education benefits, as of 2013, that's a lot of veterans coming onto campuses. So are they succeeding? Are they not succeeding? What's happening here? And that's where an estimated 45% of veterans actually drop out within the first 2 years. Whether it be, it's from what I've come across, it's been from a plethora of reasons. It could be family issues, not necessarily difficulty at these higher education institutions, just feeling disconnected. What I looked at, instead of just what's going on with the veterans, I looked at what the schools were paying attention to. Now, Out of 1,162 schools, 1% was actually looking at the veterans' retention, 6% was looking at the degree completion, 26% was looking at retention and graduation completion, but 67% weren't paying attention at all. So how are we supposed to fix a problem that 67% of the schools surveyed aren't following? They're not looking at. That's a big problem in my book. So some personal experiences, anecdotes from UMBC. Professor McAlpine was gracious enough to share a situation. He actually asked me to come speak at his INDS 330 class last spring. He was having problems with 2 veterans actually coming to class. And the week prior, before me coming and speaking in front of the class, one veteran actually completely withdrew from school completely, and the other veteran just stopped coming altogether. No notifications, no nothing. Professor McAlpine actually reached out to them and received no acknowledgement, not a word from them. A student that I came across in my cross-country trip that I did through the Wounded Warrior Project, a student veteran that I actually had the privilege of speaking with about this, he gave me a quote to read out. "The social life seemed more difficult because you don't have anyone to talk to or hang out with. You don't have anything in common with people who are 18, 19, 20, or 21 years old. So the social aspects seem more difficult than the academic aspect." Now that stands to prove that it's not the work that's expected out of them, but it's the community. It's the feeling of being connected. It's the camaraderie that they are lacking that they had while they were in the service. Me personally, just to share a little bit, I actually had a sociology professor who, teaching a lecture in front of 60+ students, and berated the military, berated veterans. It was I see her face, and it is outstandingly horrendous. I was trying to be professional as possible, but it was 20 minutes in of her berating us veterans, and I walked up to her in front of the lecture and berated her right back, saying how outrageous it was that she speak like this, not knowing or knowing, it doesn't matter, that there were 5 veterans, myself included, in her course from all branches, and her jaw dropped, we'll say that. Like she had never been spoken to like that before. I also had an incident with a student on academic row. Didn't say anything to me. Simply, he was walking ahead of me, a little bit to the right, and he made a hard left, like he forgot where he was going. And my initial reaction was draw back, and I actually struck the student. Him and I, we hashed things out, you know. He was okay with it. We explained everything, talked it out. But I think that was the week before I actually went and saw Jill. So that was a big eye-opener for me. So for this capstone, why should we use an interdisciplinary approach? Now, veterans are coming from a highly structured environment where they're told what to do, when to do it, usually not even ahead of time. You get mission A, and then after that's done, then you get mission B. And they're coming to an environment where structure is very limited, free will reigns, and there's choices everywhere for everyone. The other aspect is, for the psychological reasons, that 25 to 30% of veterans that are returning from warfare have some sort of mental disorder. And the bigger problem is roughly an estimated 25% of other veterans have unreported problems, whether it be PTSD, TBI, depression, anxiety. I mean, it's a range. And of course, all this was supplied by NASPA. So the disciplines that I utilized were psychology, sociology, and social work. Now, psychology I utilized because of the multitude of psychological disorders that follows those that do experience combat in any time. And also the cognitive impairments that follow with said disorders, whether it be problem focusing, even problem paying attention, problem communicating. Now with sociology, I pulled from there the interaction basis. How do we communicate with each other? who do we see when we're speaking with another student, faculty, or administration personnel? And how do we really address them? Because in the military, you have one singular way of addressing everybody. And then a social work, of course, a university campus is a community in itself. We are a big family, per se. And we are made up of individuals that are coming from everywhere. So why not understand how to speak with them, how to interact and communicate with them? We'll say more effectively, rather. And by improving the overall quality of life and communication between those within the community campus, a unified force can be built, or a stronger student basis can be built. Now, I actually used two bridging strategies from Boise and Silla. I used the explanation action gap. Now, what I did here was I utilized psychology and sociology to explain why there's these problems going on. And then the action gap, I actually utilized social work. So how do we address these issues? Then I also used the building complex and multi-causal explanation, which I did in the same manner, utilize psychology and sociology to build, to kind of understand why these problems were occurring. And it's more like a full circle aspect of it. So for the national assessment, I actually, I spoke with the VA representatives. Most of the schools had one VA representative for all their students. Other universities where the veteran students were actually more active on campus, they had veteran lounges, veteran quiet areas, and even a lounge parent, if you will, somebody that they could come to that if they had problems on or off campus, they could speak with them directly with no recourse, just a very comfortable, easygoing area. For UMBC, I actually found that there was 250 to 300 veterans last year with one VA representative, which really surprised me. And then there's only one program, it's called Vets to Vets, where vets actually meet once a month. They eat, they talk, and that's it. So obviously there's a big lack of veteran support here on campus. My product would be Campus Integration Communication, a FYS course, where these veterans would meet in a course setting, actually speak with civilian students, build a rapport, and basically get to know each other and learn how to communicate in a positive manner. Now, by doing this, I would have guest speakers, such as Dr. DeLuty, a reading from Lincoln's Melancholy, which is referred to by Dr. Nancy Young, and the final project will be a presentation in which students actually report how they evolved throughout the entire semester with interacting with one another. So the outcome would be a stronger student, more comfortability, and so, got it. I got the stop sign.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to say that was some military discipline right there. Normally we're having to actually get up physically and
Well, it's a big red page.
Well, thank you. Questions from anyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Spencer, in one of your early slides, you said that 45% of veterans drop out. Was it in the first year?
First 2 years. Within the first 2 years, yes, ma'am.
How does that, I assume that's nationally.
Yes, ma'am.
How does that compare with students in general?
In general, I actually didn't look at the civilian cohorts, their dropout levels. From an estimation standpoint, I would say it's severely lower compared to the veteran side.
My guess is it too, but I'm thinking that you might want to put that in context in your paper because it gives us a better understanding.
An illustration of it. Yes, ma'am.
And actually, I worry it's not terribly much lower. I think a lot of students, more than you recognize, don't make it through the first 2 years.
Well, the question is, do they not make it through the first 2 years, leave, and then come back to finish it?
That's a good question. And so that information that reaffirms Patricia's point. That will give you much more context for
Full circle.
understanding the issue.
Well, and veterans may come back too.
It's less likely, but especially as they get older, that's when they tend to come back. It's your average veteran coming back from the current combat is 24 to 31 years old. So if you can't make it the first 2 years, you're going to take some time, try to really reacclimate to society, and then try it again. Another question? Yes, sir. Or,
Oh, Jill, go for it.
she's looking back again.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what some of your concluding thoughts are about why veterans struggle in higher education institutions, and I'd like to hear why your personal thought here at the end is relevant to that.
Okay. So, personally, I feel that veterans struggle returning, not to college, but to civilian life, and actually integrating if they have or haven't been to college prior, because of experiences that they've had. Like I said, we all come from multiple walks of life. We've all had different experiences, whether it be me and my friend Phil. He's had many life experiences, and he's a lot younger than me. Just a different side of the coin. But they're memories. And if I can actually read this, does anybody, okay? This is actually from myself. I actually wrote this last summer. They say memories make us who we are, that the past defines us. But we can't forget to grow, evolve. Because sometimes a memory can be so powerful that we get stuck in it, frozen in a single moment. Yes, some memories are precious and we need to hang on to those. But Emily Dickinson wrote, "Forever is composed of nows," and she's correct. If we root ourselves too deeply in the past, we'll miss opportunities that are in front of us. So does that kind of explain? Yes, sir.
Sorry.
No, mine was the school.
Oh,
No, you forgot that.
All right, Spencer, you mentioned about some of the lack of institutional support
Yes,
for
sir.
veterans. I was just curious if you got a chance to look at maybe like student-based support for veterans, and maybe see if that movement is gaining a little bit more steam than the institutional.
Do you mean like student-based programs that are active on campus communities?
Yeah.
I did actually look into those. You know, like I said, in the universities that, when I spoke to the VA representative and they questioned what veteran services, I actually went through different outlets to gain a little more knowledge, because that kind of gave me an impression that they didn't really know what they were talking about, as I would assume it would be for others. But those that I really found, they were basically, like you said, they were initiatives where veterans were reaching out, or students were reaching out to veterans. But, I mean, if you're a veteran, it's really hard to get somebody to volunteer for anything. Yes.
Okay, so sprawling, ill-informed question. But let me start this from two-part. First one, which I think speaks where it. Do you have any knowledge about how mature students do in terms of retention and getting through 4 years, getting to graduation?
Can you clarify?
Students above the age of, say, 25.
Okay.
Do you know if they, speaking back to like what
I didn't look into civilian students that were older. I just kind of clumped them in with veterans because, like I said, it's all about experiences. Now, these older students, the ones 25 and older, I mean, they have families, they have full-time jobs or multiple jobs, and it's kind of correlates with veterans. Most veterans have families already. Most are working another job, full-time or part-time, while attending school also to try and provide, because there's only a limited amount of income you can get through the GI Bill.
So the second half, maybe I should unask this if you're unhappy with it, we've sort of drifted as a society into an assumption you go to college if you want a decent job. And you don't have to go back much more than a generation to see that even an undergraduate degree is perceived very differently. It's very specialized and particular to certain careers. Do you sense from your experience in the forces that those in active duty expect to go to college in large numbers? And if so, is it because they expect diversity of careers?
Personally, I believe, and there's empirical data that shows that veterans that come back, that utilize their GI Bill, the majority of them, if they weren't already interested in schools, like higher education, they are just using it for financial stability when they first return. So that's setting a precedent right there. You're using a benefit that's meant to improve your way of life when you return home, to further your goals, to help you achieve your goals and obtaining a career that you can be proud of. And if you're using it, belittling this benefit to just for monetary purposes, that's just sickening to me.
Although you could answer by redefinition from Professor McAlpine that they may be succeeding on their own terms. If they're using the benefit to restabilize, they achieve that. Who cares whether they graduate in their life?
Exactly.
But thank you very much for that.
Or I would argue also, should we care? if they're stabilizing themselves economically, that's a net benefit